Good afternoon and thanks for joining us. I'm Judy Simpson. Locally produced food is a big topic around the country and particularly here in Vermont. Our state is well known for artisanal cheeses as well as high quality meats, produce and specialty foods. The strong interest in local foods is good news for Vermont farms that are involved in agritourism and culinary tourism, which are two of the fastest growing segments of the tourism industry. To learn more, I'm joined by two guests. Lisa Chase is a natural resources specialist with UVM Extension and she heads the Vermont Tourism Research Center, and Pam Allen joins us from Allen Home Farm in South Hero, where she and her husband Ray manage Vermont's oldest apple orchard. They invite visitors on their farm with You Pick Apples, a farm store, tours, and a petting farm. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you, Judy. Thank you.
So, Lisa, tell us a little bit about agritourism and what it is exactly.
Agritourism is when farms open their doors, their fields, their barns to visitors. Education is a big part of agritourism, as well as the experience of seeing where food comes from and how it's actually produced. There's many different types of agritourism: overnight farm stays, educational farm tours, school field trips, wagon rides, hay rides, U-Pick operations, CSAs. These are all examples of agritourism when visitors, they could be nearby neighbors or they could be coming from far distances, visit farms and get to learn about what really happens there.
So Pam, tell us about your farm.
Well, I think we're one of the few farms that have been doing agritourism before there was a name for it. We didn't know what we were doing. Right. We just knew we had lots of people who liked to come to our farm. And it literally kind of started with, you know, the berry baskets on the card table on the front lawn with a cash box nailed to the table. And people would come by and they would pick the fruit, take it home, you know, leave their whatever in the box. Sometimes we would get notes saying, I owe you 25 cents. And then, you know, it morphed into a real farm stand back in the kind of mid-60s. And then as particularly Pick Your Own for us in the apple business grew, our harvest season has grown exponentially from that time on and gotten busier and busier.
And so I imagine that all this isn't easy really for farms. Lisa, if farmers are wondering what it takes, if it makes sense for them actually to open up to visitors, that's something that they have to think of. That's the first thing you think of is, does it make sense for me to do this kind of business on my farm? And then where does it go from there?
That's exactly right. Farms that are considering welcoming visitors onto their property really need to think about what makes sense. They need to take stock of their resources. They need to look at their goals, both for the farm, but also personally. And they need to think about their resources and their resource needs. It's really a big imposition in some ways to have all these visitors in your fields and in your house, and there are a lot of challenges that go with it. So it can be a wonderful experience for the farm and the visitors, but farms need to think about that carefully before they get involved.
Pam, can you give me some examples maybe, or an example of something that maybe cropped up that you didn't expect all of a sudden with folks on your farm?
I think one of the hardest challenges is safety. And by that, I don't necessarily mean the logical safety. We have lots of elements going on our farm. We have animals. So we have to think about safety not only for the little child who's feeding an animal, but we have to think of the safety of the animal as well. So it's kind of a circular motion in that respect. You want people to enjoy their experience, but you also have to have a few parameters that you hope people will be aware of and respect. So those are, I think, the safety issue from not only the guest's point of view, but the animal's point of view, and in our case, our orchard's point of view. Things have to be respected.
Well, it sounds like there are some challenges to opening up a farm operation to visitors. Lisa, can you tell me about some of those?
Yes, well, right, as Pam mentioned, safety is a big issue, and then there's liability insurance that goes along with that. Financial management is a piece. There are a lot of skills, customer service and marketing skills that if you haven't opened your farm to visitors before, you might not necessarily have those skills, so you might need to hire different people or develop those skills yourself.
And I think that's one of the big things too, is that I mean, any farmer that I've ever talked to is so busy that to include, taking time out of your day to answer questions and to be that person is hard.
It is. And it's kind of like being on stage. You have to be on.
That's right.
And for instance, we had a bed and breakfast for many years. I had to be happy and serving breakfast, whether I hadn't slept all night or not. You have to put that face forward that it's a positive experience for the people there, no matter what you're doing.
Well, I mean, that's one of the first things that I was looking at the website that you need to consider is, do I really like having people around? Do I want to have people around all the time?
Exactly. And some people, I'll give an example of Karen Fortin from Carmen Brook Dairy and Maple. She talks about how having visitors has been really a wonderful experience for her and the rest of her family, her children, because they live in a pretty remote part of Vermont, up in the northwest corner. And they wouldn't have met a lot of people from other countries. However, having visitors from all over this country, as well as visitors from all over the world, has really been an enriching experience for them as well. And they enjoy meeting the people and getting to know them. Not everybody would enjoy that, however.
Right. That's right.
And constantly be questioned about things. And thinking to unpack yourself, that is the most ridiculous question I've ever heard.
Oh, they come. They come.
And so, talk a little bit too about food safety, because that's a big issue these days. I mean, you've got people coming onto your property. You don't know where they've been before that. You have people eating on your establishment, interacting with animals, so you have to be really careful.
You do, and we have discovered that it's all about signage, signage, signage. We have signs everywhere. We have hand wash stations. We even have hand wash station on our actual shuttle that goes out to the field. We have to provide portalettes for the people. And because we have animals, it gets a little sketchy because you've got people petting animals and then they're headed out to pick apples, which is why we make sure there's lots of opportunity for adults and children to wash their hands. And one thing that I have learned is that if you have well-behaved parents, the children are well-behaved, which is...
That's a good point. Well, food safety with visitors on the farm sounds like it's a challenge for different types of farms. Let's take a look now at how another farm is handling it. Keith Silva takes us to East Thetford to see how one farm is embracing food safety for the public.
At Cedar Circle Farm in East Thetford, there are placards for fresh lettuce and crisp cucumbers. Garden variety signs, to be sure, with one exception: a notice asking visitors to please wash their hands. It's one of the many ways that this farm is raising awareness about food safety.
We realize that the most important thing, whether it's us selling food to someone or you buying food from someone else, is washing your hands. It's the stuff that your mother tells you.
Megan Baxter is the production manager at Cedar Circle Farm. A few years ago, she took the initiative to create a food safety manual for farm employees.
What's great about what Cedar Circle has done is that they knew that food safety was becoming an increasing concern amongst consumers.
Ginger Nickerson is the UVM Extension Good Agricultural Practices Coordinator. She believes that Cedar Circle Farm's commitment to food safety has far-reaching effects both on and off the farm.
They've always been paying attention to plant pathogens and tomato blight and things like that. So they did an assessment on their own farm, looking at where the possible places were where contamination could happen on this farm, and then implementing strategies to reduce the risk of any contamination.
Hi there, how are you doing today? You're looking to pick some blueberries?
Yep, blueberries.
Okay, we're asking everybody to wash their hands before they head out, and our hand washing sink is located right over there.
Okay. I've never been asked to wash my hands before berry picking before.
Janet Cathy is a longtime Cedar Circle Farm customer. When she was asked to wash her hands before berry picking, she was happy to abide by the farm's policies.
Anybody could have something on their hands that isn't clean, so it makes sense to have your hands washed. And then I realized that I could be leaving something on the berries for somebody else to get, so I understand about being considerate.
things like the hand washing stations, like the signage, that actually helps people become more confident when they come to the farm. They say, okay, good, this is a place I sort of fit in, I see this, and that kind of lines up with other tourism experiences that they have in other sectors, non-agricultural tourism experiences, where they're accustomed to signs, accustomed to being told where to go and what to do. And not that every farm experience is regimented like that, or not that anybody dreams of keeping people you know, on the straight and narrow, so to speak, but from a tourism perspective, it just helps sort of situate people and helps locate people within those expectations.
Be it you pick or they pick, remember Mom's advice and wash your hands. In East Thetford, I'm Keith Silva with Across the Fence.
Well, our thanks to Cedar Circle Farm. We also want to mention, too, that Cedar Circle Farm has a no pets allowed component. And is that something that you do as well?
When we are engaged in full-scale harvest, we do not allow animals in our harvest at that time. Up until then, we're happy for people to bring their dogs to our petting paddock. They have to be leashed, obviously. And most, I would say 99% of the people who bring their dogs are very polite and respectful. You know, there's always that one who's trying to get the dog to chase the chickens. But for the most part, they know that these are our pets as well. They're not just farm animals to us, they're pets. And they're quite respectful.
Now, Lisa, how can farmers learn more about dealing with some of these challenges?
Vermont Farms Association has partnered with University of Vermont Extension and Shelburne Farms and several other groups, and we've put together a new website where we've got a variety of resources talking about several of the issues that we've discussed already, whether it's assessing your farm for agritourism, the safety and liability issues, the financial management, the marketing. We've got several resources, and that website address is www.uvm.edu/VT Agritourism. And there you can find all sorts of information, including these new guides that help farmers think through some of these issues.
I know you were saying that Extension has been a big help for you folks.
Oh my goodness, we couldn't exist without Extension. From the fruit specialists who help us figure out how to make a good crop to particularly in the last 5 years, Ginger Nickerson, who has helped us wade through the waters of the GAP, which stands for Good Agricultural Practices, audit, which is not an audit, it's an inspection that has to come because we sell our crop to Hannaford. And it's a food safety plan, and you have to have this thick, thick book full of all of these things that you've done to make sure that your crop has not been poisoned. And that you're doing everything in your power to produce and sell safe fruit.
Now, Pam, I know one of the best ways for farmers to learn about agritourism is to get together with other farmers. And
absolutely.
And there's an event coming up that we want to talk about.
There is, and Lisa had already said it's April 7th and 8th down in Rutland. The first day is touring farms, and that's never a waste of time. You always come away with at least one wonderful idea that you can borrow or steal or whatever. And there is absolutely nothing better than interacting with fellow farmers and just sharing ideas and finding out what worked for them or what didn't work for them.
Do you get questions all the time from other farmers as well?
Probably yes, because we've been doing the agritourism component so long, they'll ask, you know, everything from how do you stand this to how do I stay, you know, what would be the first thing I could do? And we've done so many different things on our farm over the years, you know, starting with the pick your own and then adding things like Maple Creamy and the petting farm, which is a huge draw. It's a lot of work, but people love our animals. And when we travel, we try to always go to some sort of agritourism place in other countries just to see what other people are doing.
Lisa, where should farmers go for more information?
Again, it's that website, and there's information, as I mentioned, about the resources, but also that conference in Rutland, April 7th to 8th. And the website, again, is www.uvm.edu/VT Agritourism.
I know one of the things said to start small.
Yes, yes. There's nothing scarier than growing too fast and being unprepared for it. You know, you have to have the right kind of employees, and you have to have a lot of energy. above all. One of our most wonderful employees, I call him our ambassador, is Winston, who's one of our Jamaicans, and he's been coming for probably almost 20 years now, and he drives the wagon for Pick Your Own. We have people come up to us the rest of the year and say, how is Winston doing? Is Winston coming back this year? And he remembers children, and he does the school tours as well, and they write him these wonderful letters, which he, you know, takes close to his heart and takes back to Jamaica.
Well, I want to thank you both for coming on and talking about this. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's our program for today. I'm Judy Simpson. We'll see you again next time on Across the Fence.